So today's webinar is going to be Accelerate File-Based Workload Migrations to AWS using Amazon FSx for NetApp ONTAP. So this is going to be a very unique webinar in the sense that this is going to be a hands-on webinar for all of you. We'll actually give you an opportunity to walk through an FSx for NetApp ONTAP workshop together. But before we get started, let's go ahead and look at the agenda so we know what we're going to be doing here for the next couple hours. First, we're going to go through a very quick overview of FSx for NetApp ONTAP, give you some of a little history of NetApp ONTAP at AWS, and talk a little bit about the architecture that we've deployed to basically provide a fully managed ONTAP file system for you. We'll talk about some of the benefits of NetApp ONTAP, as well as some of the features that we're going to look at during the workshop. Next, we'll talk about a workshop overview where we'll go through the architecture of the workshop, basically these environments that have already been created for you, and we'll get you logged in so you all have access to your very own account and FSx for NetApp ONTAP environment. And then we'll go through this together. I'll actually share my screen as I'm going through the workshop, but what I want you to do is follow along in your accounts that I give you. These are not your personal accounts or your corporate accounts at AWS. These are going to be separate accounts that I will provide you here in a few minutes that you will use to walk through this webinar. Then when we get into the workshop, I'll be sharing my screen. We'll be going back and forth. We'll basically share with you all of the steps that you should be taking yourself when walking through the workshop. And then at the very end, we'll basically clean up our workshop, make sure that we terminate and delete all of the resources that when we're done, so that we can easily clean this up after the webinar. All right, so FSx for NetApp ONTAP. So what is Amazon FSx? So Amazon FSx is a service that provides a feature-rich, fully managed file system within just a few minutes. You can create these with a few API calls or even just a few clicks from the AWS console. These are fully managed file systems that give you access to a feature-rich file system that we provision for you on your behalf in the AWS cloud. One of the benefits of using a file system managed by Amazon FSx is that it's built on the latest compute, storage, and networking technologies. So you really get the best of the cloud when you're using Amazon FSx. So Amazon FSx launched back in 2018 at reInvent with Amazon FSx for Lustre and Amazon FSx for Windows File Server. Since then, we've launched a few more file system types, FSx for NetApp ONTAP and FSx for OpenZFS. So while all of these share a very common name, Amazon FSx, or a platform, they are very unique file systems. You know, Lustre is very different from Windows File Server, which is very different than ONTAP, which is very different than OpenZFS. So all of them have a place within our environment. And many customers will use one file system and another file system to support the same workload or different workloads. So it really depends on you, the customer. What this allows us to do is really give you the flexibility to select the file system that is best suited for your application needs. NetApp for ONTAP is for FSx, you actually get a complete NetApp ONTAP file system. But it is provided to you fully managed by AWS. So you get the agility, the scalability, the simplicity of running within the AWS cloud. You can have control over your FSx for NetApp ONTAP resources using the AWS management tools. So you have the console, the CLI, as well as the SDKs. But if you're also very familiar with NetApp management tools, like the NetApp Cloud Manager or the ONTAP CLI and API, you can also manage your ONTAP resources using those tools as well. So you get really a great flexibility of managing these resources using either AWS tools or NetApp tools. Next, with the ONTAP resources, when you provision a file system, this file system is provisioned for you. But behind the scenes, what is there basically? So what there is, you can create storage VMs that will be underneath your file system, and underneath each storage VM, you have volumes. So you have these volumes associated with your SVM, and your SVM is then associated with this file system. And you can have multiple SVMs associated with the same file system. One of the great benefits of NetApp ONTAP is the multi-protocol access, where you can have workloads that are accessing the same data set coming from NFS clients, SMB clients, or iSCSI clients. So it really gives you, the customer, the flexibility of accessing it from multiple platforms using multiple protocols. So there's a lot of data protection features built into FSx for NetApp ONTAP. First, we have backups, snapshots, SnapVault, and SnapMirror. All of these we're going to discuss and address during our webinar today. We're also going to be getting into FlexClones, which are basically a point-in-time writable copy of the volume. And we're going to actually walk through a couple of steps as we work with FlexClones during the workshop. We'll also talk a little bit about storage efficiencies, where you can enable compression, deduplication, and compaction on your file system, on your volumes, so that you can take advantage of some of these capabilities to help reduce the total amount of space used by your file system. Next, the elastic tiering. So really, this enables you to automatically tier between a hot and cold storage platforms, which will allow you to not only save money, but to be very efficient in the very fast, high-performing SSD tier where you're going to be accessing your file system. But yet you'll still have access to that data in your colder tier, which is stored at a very cost-effective price. All right, so let's take a look at the workshop. So the workshop, everyone here today is going to receive temporarily, for the next few hours, a new AWS account. And within this AWS account, this environment has been created for you. So a new VPC in 2 availability zones with a managed Active Directory, 2 EC2 instance, 1 Windows and 1 Linux, and an FSx for NetApp ONTAP file system. We also have some other resources there as well in terms of directory services, as well as secrets manager, where we're going to store some of the secrets that we're going to be using to access our file system. This workshop has a number of steps that we're going to be going through. We're going to talk about and walk through managing some of the resources within FSx for NetApp ONTAP. Multi-protocol access. So we'll step through each of these steps as we access the same file system from both the Linux EC2 instance as well as a Windows EC2 instance. We'll look at elastic tiering, storage efficiencies, FlexClone, data protection. And if we have time, we're going to get into the SnapMirror. So this is something that I'm halfway through the workshop where I'm going to actually skip up ahead, create another file system that we're going to use as our DR file system, our disaster recovery file system, Then we're going to go back, and hopefully by the time that new file system is done creating, we will be able to then walk through some of the SnapMirror steps at the end. Then before we finish today, what we want to do is we want to clean up some of these resources. So we're actually going to go through and we're going to delete the volumes of our two file systems, the SVMs, then the file systems themselves. All right, so with that said, let's go ahead and get started with the workshop. So the first thing I want everyone to do is go ahead and open up a browser, and I want you to go to this link. It's a bit.ly link, so bit.ly/fsxn-03-2022. This will take you to the steps that we're going to be walking through today during our webinar workshop. So I'll give everyone just a few seconds to go ahead and get access to that. I'm going to go ahead and walk through, just show you what you should be seeing now in your browser. You should be seeing basically a page that looks like this. And you can quickly read through what we're going to be doing today within the workshop. Next, what we want to do is we want everyone to get access to your account. Okay, so in a separate tab in your browser, I want you to go to dashboard.eventengine.run. Okay, so I'm going to do that as well. So dashboard.eventengine.run. I want everyone to go there right now. You should see a screen similar to this. And again, I'll just wait a few seconds for everyone to get to this point in the workshop. If you have any questions, please chat those questions in the chat window of the webinar. We have a number of great moderators that are going to be there to answer those questions, to help you along the way if you get stuck during the workshop. Okay, so everyone should be at this point. You should have one tab which has the Event Engine dashboard, and another tab that has the steps, the workshop steps. All right, so let's go back to my slides, and we're going to walk through what this is going to look like. So now I want everyone to type in the dashboard down here, this hash code. So if you could type this into the hash code section of the Event Engine browser. This is what we need everyone to do right now. So I'm going to wait just about a minute or so just to make sure that everyone gets that in there. This is very important because if you don't have this, you're not going to have access to the AWS account that we have provisioned for you. So I'll wait just a little longer. Take a screenshot if you need to. Type that out really fast. Save that somewhere so that you can always get back to it if you need it. But go ahead and copy these numbers down, this hash down, so that you can use that and enter that into the Event Engine section. Okay, so if everyone has done that, at the very bottom, you should see it now says accept terms and login. What you want to do is you want to go ahead and click on accept terms and login. Now what this will do, this will take us to basically the sign in with window. And for everybody on this webinar, you really have two options. You have the email one-time password, or you can sign in using login with Amazon. Now, this login with Amazon is using your Amazon.com retail account. If you have one, you can go ahead and use that. If you don't, use the email one-time password. That's probably the easiest, as long as you have access to that, to an email address that you're going to be entering in here, so that you can get this code and use that to basically authenticate yourself so you can get into your account. So the first thing we're going to do, we're going to actually walk through the steps of using the email one-time password. All right, so once you click that, you'll get this window, one-time email passcode. So go ahead and enter your email. Please don't enter in my email address. I would love to get emails from all of you, but getting your passcode sent to me doesn't help. So go ahead and put in your email address here. Once you do that, this is an email address that you have access to right now. So either on your phone or on your laptop, on your desktop, you need to have access to this email address that you enter in here right now. Once you do that, you go ahead and click on Send Passcode. This window will pop up. What I need you to do now is actually go and look at your email. Now, this may take a minute or two to receive this email. Once you receive this email, you're going to notice this one-time passcode down here on the left bottom of my screen. This is the passcode you need to copy, and you're going to paste it in the other window that we just saw. So I'm going to pause here for 30 seconds or so, just to make sure that everyone has enough time to receive your one-time passcode. If you are using one-time passcode. If you're not using one-time passcode and you're going to be using login using your Amazon.com retail account, we'll be walking through those steps here in a few seconds. So I hope everyone is keeping up and everyone has now received their one-time passcode using the email address that they entered in the previous screen. Okay, so let's move on. Go ahead and paste that one-time passcode into this box and click Sign In. Now you should see a team dashboard window. Once you see this team dashboard window, I want you to click on the AWS console that I have highlighted right here. Once you click on the AWS console button, it will take you to the AWS console login window. From here, what we want you to do is we want you to open the AWS console. So over here on the left-hand side, you'll see Open AWS Console. I want you to go ahead and click on that button. Once you click on that button, you should now have access to a new AWS account that we have provisioned for you with all of these resources already pre-built, ready for you to start the workshop. So I hope everyone is here now at the AWS console. If you were going to use a one-time passcode. Now, if you're going to use the login with AWS with Amazon using your Amazon.com retail account, I'm going to walk through these steps really quick as well. Click on that. You'll get this window. Here, what you want to do is you want to sign in using your Amazon.com retail account. So your email address or your mobile phone and the password that you use to access your Amazon.com retail account. Don't worry, we're not going to be charging your Amazon.com retail account for anything that you run here during the workshop. All this is doing is to authenticate you. We want to make sure that you are you, and we're going to use your Amazon.com retail account to basically do that authentication for us. So go ahead and put in your password there and sign in. Next, you're going to get basically identity management service window, basically saying that the training and certification team, which is basically using this event engine, would like to get access to your Amazon.com retail account. Go ahead and click on Allow, and this will take you to the team dashboard. Now we've authenticated you. You're in Event Engine. Now we want to basically give you access to one of these accounts. So in the AWS console, we want to go ahead and click on AWS console from the team dashboard. And then from the AWS console login window, we want you to click Open AWS console. Again, just like before, using the one-time email passcode, you should now be at the AWS Management Console. All right, so hopefully everyone is there right now. So what I need to do is basically get my environment, excuse me, set up so that I can actually walk through these steps. So give me 1 minute. And I will have my environment ready as well. So while I do this, I just want to make sure that everyone has 2 browsers open, one to the Event Engine, or actually by now, basically what you should have is you should have, let me see if I can add mine down here. You should have one to the AWS Management Console. Then you should also have a tab open for the workshop. Which is great. Okay, so you'll notice that we're going to be running this in the US East 1 or the Northern Virginia region. So we always want to make sure that if you go in and you start changing things around within the console, we recommend that you don't do it so you can follow along with the workshop, but you always want to be in the Northern Virginia region in the AWS console. Okay, so now let's go back to the step-by-step workshop instructions within the GitHub repo. So if we click on Access Workshop Environment, basically you've already done all of these steps. So you've already walked through signing into your account, which is great. So we can actually skip all of this information and we can go all the way down to Manage Resources. So I want everyone now using that, the GitHub repo for the workshop, to scroll all the way down to that, from that first page, and click on Manage Resources. So from here, everyone should be in the 03 Manage ONTAP Resources section within the workshop. And this is where we're gonna start having some fun. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is we want to go to the FSX console. So an easy way to do this within the workshop is if you right-click the link in your on the instructions and click on Open Link in New Tab, you'll actually be automatically brought to the Amazon FSX console. So this is an easy way to sort of manage where you're going to be going, and it's a lot easier. So now we're in the FSX. We're in the FSX console. Within your account, we see that we have one file system already created. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to go ahead and click on that file system ID. So we want to examine the information, the summary information of your file system. And we can see all of these steps here as we sort of walk through this. So I want you to walk through this while I walk through the steps. And I want you to walk through the steps as well. So the first thing we want to do is we want to examine the file system ID. So we have that file system ID there. You can easily copy that file system ID to the clipboard by just clicking on this copy sort of link or button here. We can see that the lifecycle state is available, and it is a ONTAP file system with a deployment type of multi-AZ, meaning that this file system is basically spread across 2 availability zones. So we have basically a primary server in one availability zone and a secondary server in another availability zone. Next, we want to take a look at the SSD storage capacity. So here we show that we have basically a terabyte size file system with a throughput capacity of 512 megabytes per second. And we provisioned 3,072 IOPS for this file system. Again, our preferred AZ or availability zone, in my case, I'm in US East 1B. This may be different for you because this is going to be different for each account. So you may have different availability zones here, but we basically have 1B as my preferred and 1C as my standby. And we can see that this was created here very recently within the console. Next thing we want to do is we want to examine the network and security settings of our file system. So on the network and security tab, we can look at this VPC. So what we want to do is we want to basically make a note, mental note, or you can actually copy and paste this if you really wanted to. We can easily do this. We're going to be actually copying and pasting a few items from either the console as well as the instructions of the workshop. And we want to paste these probably to some type of notepad. So let me see if I have a notepad that I can use. And I'll just go ahead and paste some of this information here for me. So I can always come back and refer to these at a later date. So we have the VPC. We have the endpoint IP address range. So this is basically the endpoint address that we have for our file system. The KMS key ID that is used to encrypt the data at rest. And we also have the routing table. So this is the route table that we are using for this file system. So what I want to do is I'm going to go ahead and copy this as well. And I'm going to paste this out here. Not necessary, but it's going to help me along in some of the later steps in the workshop. So if you want to do that, great. If you don't, I'll show you a way that you can come back and actually get this information. You can get all this information from the console. It helps speed up the process a little later in the workshop. All right, next, let's go ahead and take a look at the endpoints. So we have the management endpoint, the DNS name, as well as the IP address. And we also have the intercluster endpoint DNS name, as well as the intercluster endpoint IP addresses. So all this information is here within basically the main page of the network and security tab of the main page of your file system. Next, what we want to do is we want to examine the subnet attributes of the file system. So we want to take a look at the subnet. You can see that I'm in public subnet 0. And here's the subnet ID that I'm running in for my preferred subnet. And here's my standby subnet, again, public subnet 1. And again, the subnet ID of that public subnet. We know the availability zones for both the preferred and standby subnets, and also the network interfaces for each of these file systems or these resources in these subnets. So a question to all of you, and this is actually in the step-by-step instructions or guide within the workshop. So how would I, as an example, how would I find the VPC security groups associated with my file system? So ask yourself that question with what you know about AWS and about how security groups work. For my file system here, how would I go about finding out which security groups are associated with my file system? Well, some of you may know that security groups are associated with, or network interfaces have a security group or multiple security groups associated with them. So one easy way that we can find that out is if we click on the network interface link, we'll open up a new tab. We'll see that this is the ENI for our file system. So if we click on this, we actually go into the network interface. One thing I want you to note is the description. So we notice that it says do not detach or untag. So this is the network interface for your FSX file system, and it gives us the file system ID. Excuse me. So you notice this file system ID should match the file system ID of my file system, and it does, which is great. So now what we can do is we can take a look at the security groups. So this file system has, or this ENI within the file system has one security group associated with it. So this is one way that you can find out which security groups you have assigned to your file system. And it's specifically going to be associated with this ENI the file that we have created on your behalf and attached to your file system. All right. So next we want to go ahead and let's go ahead and just close out that tab. We'll go back to the FSX console. Next, what we want to do is we want to look at the administration tab. So here within the administration tab, we want to take a look at the service account name. So we notice that we have a service account of FSX admin. We have management endpoints, the DNS name and the IP address. And again, we have the inter-cluster endpoints, both the DNS name and the IP address. So this information is going to be useful later on in the workshop. All right, so let's go ahead and get caught up. We've walked through all of these steps so far within the first section of our workshop. And now we should be down here at the connect to the Linux instance. So again, the easiest way to navigate from the workshop steps to the console is if you see sort of a link like this, just go ahead and right click, open link in new tab. And now a new tab to the Amazon EC2 console is going to be there, is going to open up. Great. So now we have, and let's go ahead, let's go back to our, let's go to instances. So from the EC2 console, we'll click on the instances link, and we can see that we have two instances already created. We have a Linux instance and we have a Windows instance. What we want to do is we want to go ahead and connect to the Linux instance. So let's go ahead and click on the radio button next to the FSX for NetApp ONTAP Linux instance. And we want to go ahead and click on this connect button here. You notice we have a number of different options to connect to this instance. We can use an EC2 instance connect, a session manager, an SSH client, or the EC2 serial console. What we want everyone to do, because it's going to be the simplest for all of us here and for all of you, is we're going to use the session manager. Okay, so make sure that the session manager link is highlighted. And now we're going to go ahead and click on connect. This will open up a new tab using Session Manager, and now we're going to be connected to that Linux instance. And we can see that we're clicked there, we're already logged in, and now we can go ahead and access this Linux instance. So I want to make sure that everyone can see this. So let me see if I can increase the size just a little bit so everyone can see that a little better on the screen. But I want everyone to be following along with this on your own console. Okay, so let's go back to our instructions. So we've already logged into this instance using SSM Manager. Now what we want to do is we want to go ahead and we want to just store some variables, basically. So let's go ahead and just copy what's in number 6. And I'm going to go ahead and paste this into my notepad. Now what we want to do is we want to go ahead and get the IP address of the file system's management endpoint. And we're going to paste it in here. So let's go back to the FSX console. And I'm going to move my console over here to the left because I'm going to be going back to this a lot. Okay, from this console, what we want to do is we want to go ahead and go back to the network and security tab. We want to take a look at the management endpoint. Okay, so here's the management endpoint. So we want to go ahead and grab that file system ID, or sorry, we want to go ahead and grab that IP address. So let's go ahead and grab that IP address. We're going to go ahead and copy it. We'll go back to our notepad. We're going to go ahead and paste that in. Now we're going to go ahead and copy this, and we're going to execute this in our SSM session that's connected to this Linux instance. Okay, so now we've stored these variables. We're going to be using these in the next few steps. Next thing we want to do is we want to go back to the FSX console. Okay, so before we continue, let's go ahead and take a look at what other resources do we have with this file system. And I'm going to go out just a little bit on this one so it's a little easier to read on one screen. So if we click on the Storage Virtual Machines tab, we're going to look at the storage virtual machines that have been created for the file system. We notice we don't have any SVMs right now. So what we want to do is we want to create our first SVM that's going to be associated with this file system. So we click on Create Storage Virtual Machine. From the drop-down, we want to go ahead and select the file system. We should only have one file system there, so go ahead and click the only file system from the drop-down box. The Storage Virtual Machine, and again, we want you to follow these instructions to the T, so perfectly, because the scripts that we use later on, we're going to be using some of these values. So we don't want you to make up a different virtual machine name. We want you to follow these steps exactly. So we want to go SVM01. And we want to go ahead and accept the default for the SVM administrative password. On the Active Directory, we want to go ahead and click Join an Active Directory. The net BIOS name is going to be SVM01. And the Active Directory domain name is going to be example.com. Again, if it's easier, you can go ahead and copy and paste from the steps within the workshop. You could just sort of copy and paste these into the console. Now we need the DNS servers of the IP addresses. So these are the DNS servers of the Active Directory that we created for you. So where are these located? Well, an easy way to do this is to basically go to the directory services console in AWS. So again, we go back to the steps in the workshop, easily right-click directory service, open in a new tab. Now you're going to see that we have the directory services console opening up. Now what we want to do is we want to look for those DNS server IP addresses. We see that we have one directory already created, and it's using the example.com directory name, which is perfect. Now let's go ahead and click on the directory ID. If we scroll down, we're going to see these DNS addresses, okay? What we want to do is we want to go ahead and copy these. So go ahead and copy. We're going to go back to the FSX console, and we're going to paste it in. So we're going to paste in the first one there, and we're going to go back to the directory service, and we're going to grab the second DNS IP address. All right, so you should have two DNS IP addresses entered in the create the SVM screen. Now let's go to the service account. So if we go back to our steps, the service account that is used for the Active Directory, we want to get access to that. So all of this information is actually stored within Secrets Manager. So again, right-click AWS Secrets Manager, open in a new tab, and you'll notice that the Secrets Manager tab is opening up. you should have two different secrets. You should have one starting with FSX password, then one starting with password dash, okay, and then some type of GUID, okay? So the one that we want to retrieve this time is the password dash and then some type of GUID here, okay? So let's go ahead and click on that one. We want to scroll down and we're going to notice that the secret value, we want to retrieve our secret values. So we have the username and the password that has been created for this username in Active Directory. So let's go ahead and grab the username. Just click on copy and it will copy it to the clipboard. Go back to the FSX console where we're creating the file system. Sorry, creating the SVM. And we'll just paste in the service account name there. Next, we want to go ahead and do the same thing with the password. So go back to Secrets Manager. Let's go ahead and copy the password. Go back to the Create SVM window, and we're going to go ahead and confirm that password. All right, so now we know that this SVM is going to be connecting to our examples.com domain using these service account credentials, the username and password. All right, so the next thing we want to do is we want to go ahead and enter in the OU information. So the easiest thing that you can do here is go ahead and from the steps, go ahead and just copy the bold or highlighted section or text, copy this, and we're going to go ahead and paste this into that window, that text box. So we want to make sure that that's in there. Next, the delegated file system admin group, we're going to leave that the default. We're also going to leave the default for the volume security style. We're going to use Unix, Linux. Okay, so let's make sure that all this is created, all this is set up, everything has been entered the way that we want it to be entered. And click on confirm. All right, so an SVM is being created, which is great. So it'll take about 5 minutes or so to go ahead and create this SVM. So we don't have to wait for this. What we'll go ahead and do is we'll go ahead and create a volume while this SVM is being created. So here on the FSX console, we want to click on volumes. And if we scroll down, you notice we don't have any volumes. So we definitely need to create a volume. So let's go ahead and create a volume, and we have our create volumes window. So what do we want to do here? So the file system ID is pre-selected for us. What we want to do now is select the virtual machine that we just created, or we are creating right now. So it's creating basically in the background. So select the SVM01 virtual machine. The volume name that we want to use, we're going to just input vol1. So VOL1, and the junction path is going to be /vol1. Okay. The volume size. So in megabytes, what's the volume size? And we're going to go ahead and basically put in 100,000. We have 100,000 megabyte volume that we're going to be creating here. If we scroll down to the storage efficiencies, we do want to enable storage efficiencies. So we want to go ahead and select the enabled storage efficiencies. And we want to change the capacity pool tiering policy from auto to none. So your create volume window should look something like this. You should have the SVM selected. The volume name should be vol1, junction path /vol1, 100,000 megabytes for your volume size, enabled for your storage efficiencies, and none selected for your capacity pool tiering policy. So once you have all this, go ahead and click on confirm. And now the volume is being created. It will take about a minute or two for this volume to be created. So let's go back to our SVM and see how it's doing. So our SVM is created. which is perfect. So let's go ahead and let's examine the SVM. So if we click on the SVM ID, we'll go ahead and look at the SVM name, which is SVM01, the SVM ID. And the SVM is joined to what Active Directory? Well, we know we just did it, so it's joined to the example.com Active Directory, which is great. So if we scroll down, we can also see all of the endpoints. Let's go back to our virtual machine. And what we want to do is we want to examine the volumes. So let's see if our volumes have been created yet, and it hasn't. So let's see, if we go back to the FSX and go back into our file system and click on volumes, we should see that our vol1 has been created. But you notice there's also a root volume. So this is the SVM01 root. So when an SVM is created, the root volume is created, but then you can also create additional volumes. So we created this new volume called vol1. And we see that the junction path for vol1 is /vol1. What's the size of the volume? Basically that 100,000 megabytes or 100 gigabytes. And we can see that the tiering policy is set to none as well. So let's go ahead and examine the backups. So let's go to the backups tab of the file system. And if we scroll down, we'll really see, are automatic backups enabled? So if we take a look at the settings, we'll see that the automatic backups are disabled for this file system. So what we want to do is we want to go ahead and we want to update this, and we want to enable automatic backups. So if we click on update, we can go ahead and just select the enable automatic backups recommended. It's just going to go ahead and select a time, a random time to do those backups. And it's going to go ahead and run basically at this time, and the retention is going to be for 7 days. And we'll go ahead and save our settings. So now we should see that we do have automatic backups enabled. The retention is 7 days, and it's going to happen every day at basically midnight UTC. Let's go ahead and now select the tags tab. And you notice that we don't have any tags associated with this file system. So this file system, we can have, I believe, up to 50 tags associated with them. These tags, again, are just key value pairs, very similar to any tag that you associate with other AWS resources. So we want to go ahead and add a tag. So let's go ahead, add a tag, and we're going to call the tag key name, and the value, let's go ahead and just grab this from the workshop steps. So let's scroll back down to where we're actually at, and we're going to go ahead and grab and just copy the FSX ONTAP workshop. And we're going to go ahead and paste that in. So now we're creating a tag to our file system, and it's tagged as FSX ONTAP workshop, which is great. Okay, so now let's go back to the SSH connection we have to our Linux instance. So that should be one of these, should be this one here. So we're already connected to our Linux instance. So I want everyone to go back to the SSM connection they have to their Linux instance. Excuse me. And we want to go ahead and connect to the management endpoint. So let's go ahead and from the step-by-step guide, click on the basically this text box to go ahead and copy this command. go back to our our SSM console. And now we're going to go ahead and connect to our management endpoint. Are you sure you want to connect? Absolutely. I type in yes, and it's asking me for a password. All right, so where do we get this password? Well, let's go back to our instructions. We want to go ahead and go back to the AWS Secrets Manager, and we want to select the FSX password dash password that has been created. So the Secrets Manager tab, we want to go back to secrets. And again, we want to click on the FSX password dash and then some GUID. We want to click on that one. Again, we want to scroll down, select retrieve secret value. And we want to copy this password for the secret value. Okay. So password is the key. And this is the value. So this is the password for FSX admin that we're trying to log in. So we're going to go ahead and paste that in there. And we're going to try that again. This time we're going to copy it right. Excuse me. All right, so we're logged in. Now we have logged into the management endpoint for our ONTAP file system. So let's go ahead and see what kind of commands are available. So we've got, if we just type in a question mark, we can see that we can manage the clusters, manage the system events, you can quit the CLI. So these are all the different commands that we can execute to help manage our ONTAP resources. Okay, so let's go ahead and show information about the volume. So if we just type in vol show, we can see that we have the two volumes. Again, this is very similar. You should, excuse me. You should be familiar with this because this is what we were looking at from the AWS Management Console, the FSX console, about the volumes. So we have the two volumes, one root, one's the vol one that we created, and basically the size and the status are online. So great. Also, let's go ahead and look at the network interface. So let's go ahead and an easy way, and we can be really easy about this. Let's scroll down. Let's just copy. And we'll go ahead and paste that in. All right. Now we can take a look at the network interfaces. So the one thing we want to make a note of is the IP address for the NFS SMB Management 1 interface. Okay, so let's go ahead and we go back to our step-by-step guide. I'm going to go ahead and copy this. We're going to hop over to my notepad, paste that in. We're going to go back to the management console. We're going to copy this IP address. Back to the notepad, and we're going to paste this in. Okay, so now we basically paste it in. We have the IP address of the NFS endpoint. And let's go ahead and just copy that, and we're going to run this in on our Linux box. So right now, though, we don't want to run it here because we want to run it on the Linux box. So what we want to do is we want to quit the management connection. So now we're back to the Linux instance, and we're going to go ahead and paste this. So now we have the IP address of the NFS endpoint stored as a variable within on this Linux instance. Okay, great. So let's go ahead and move on. So we've basically finished this section on managing our ONTAP resources. let's go ahead and click on the multi-protocol access. It'll take us to the next step. So if you want to, you can very quickly sort of read through the summary, but I'm going to go ahead and skip ahead. Because we want to make sure that we complete as much as we can of the workshop in the allotted time. Next, what we want to do is let's go ahead and just grab this command here to grab what NFS file systems have been mounted to our Linux instance. So we'll go ahead and copy that. We'll come back here. We'll go ahead and execute it. And you notice we really don't have any NFS file systems mounted right now. So what we want to do is we want to go ahead and change that. So let's go ahead and go back to our step-by-step guide. We want to copy this command, this script. And we're going to go ahead and mount this as /fsx. Back to our Linux instance. We're going to paste that command. We're going to execute it. So now that file system, it has been mounted. So what we want to do is let's go ahead and change the owner of the files of the mount. And we're going to basically, here we have two options. Because we're connecting using the systems manager, we're using the SSM user. So we want to go ahead and grab this command here to change the owner. We're going to execute that in our Linux console. Great. So now we've changed the owner. What we want to do is we want to go ahead and grep to see if that file system has been mounted as that endpoint. So let's go ahead and grab this command back to our Linux instance, paste the command and run it. So we see, hey, this is great. So we notice that the file system has been mounted. It's mounted as NFS version 4.1, and it's mounted as /fsx, which is excellent. So what we want to do is, let's say we wanted to mount this file system, but with a different version. Okay, let's say we want to mount it as version 3. So let's go back to our step-by-step guide. Let's grab this command where we're going to basically execute another mount command, mounting it as NFS v3, but we're going to mount it as a different basically mount point. Okay, we're going to mount this as the v3 mount. So let's go ahead and copy that back to our Linux instance. We're going to go ahead and paste that in and execute it. Okay, now let's see if that has been mounted. So if we grep for the v3 mount, we'll see that now that file system is mounted as FSXN FSv3, and that it is mounted as version 3. So we have basically two file systems mounted. And we can actually go back and let's go ahead and just grab that initial mount command just to look at it. We have it mounted twice. We have the vol1 mounted as FSX using NFS 4.1. And we have vol1 mounted as FSX NFS v3 mounted as NFS v3. So same volume mounted to two different basically mount points. One's mounted as NFS v3 and one as 4.1. So we're not going to go ahead and we're not going to mount, sorry, we're not going to use the NFS v3 one. So let's go ahead and we'll just go back here. We'll grab the sudo unmount command for the v3 mount, and we'll run this and we'll unmount our v3 command. So now what we can do is we can grep that again. We'll see that we only have the NFS v4.1 version of our volume mounted to this instance. All right, next thing we want to do is we want to copy the script to create a new directory and a file in the endpoint. So let's go ahead and copy this command. Go back to our Linux instance, and we're going to execute this command. So you notice we created a new file called multiprotocol-demo.txt. And within that file, we have one line that says this file is used for multi-protocol access demo, which is great. So now what we want to do is we want to go ahead and create a CIFS share. Okay. So let's go back to our step-by-step guide. And in the create a CIFS share, we want to go ahead and log back into the management endpoint of our file system. So we'll go ahead and copy this command, go back to our Linux instance, and we're going to paste this in and run it. But remember, we're going to be prompted for that password, right? So we're going to have to go back to the secrets manager, grab the password for the FSX admin user, and we're going to go ahead and paste that in. And we're going to log in. So now we're logged into the management endpoint of our file system. Okay. Next thing we want to do is we want to go ahead and run this script to go ahead and create a CIFS share. Okay. We'll copy that command back to our management connection, our management endpoint connection. We'll paste that in and we'll go ahead and create that CIFS share. So let's verify that that CIFS share has been created. So let's go ahead and grab the next command. Again, run this in against the management endpoint. And we see that we have a CIFS share created, and it's called multi-protocol. So now we know that our multi-protocol share has been created, which is great. All right, so now what we want to do is you recall when we were connecting to our instances, we had two different instances. We had a Linux instance and we had a Windows instance. So now what we want to do is we want to go ahead and connect to the Windows instance. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and select the checkbox next to the ONTAP Workshop Windows instance. I'm going to scroll down and I'm going to grab and copy the public IPv4 DNS name. This is the DNS name that I'm going to use to log into the Windows instance. Now, what we need everyone to do is go ahead and open up your remote desktop client. So if you're on a Windows machine, you want to open up the remote desktop connections application. If you're on a Mac, go ahead and open up the Microsoft Remote Desktop app. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and now that I've copied that DNS name, I'm going to open up my Microsoft app and let me go ahead and pull this down here. So we've got it here. And we're going to add a new connection. So we'll click on Add PC. We're going to go ahead and paste that in there. I don't want it to do a full screen for me, so I'm going to start not in a full screen session, just in a, well, actually, yeah, we could do it in a full screen. That's fine. But it is going to prompt us for a username and password. Okay, so let's go ahead and add this. So we need to get ready to go ahead and connect to this instance. So we can go ahead and click on this. It's going to prompt us. So where do we get these credentials? Secrets Manager. Remember, within the workshop, if there are credentials requested, we go to Secrets Manager. So back to Secrets Manager. It's not the FSX admin user. We want to go back to the other secret that was created. So we want to go back to the password -GUID. Okay. So back to Secrets Manager, click on the password -GUID secret, scroll down, retrieve secret value. And again, this is the domain account that we created for this environment. So go ahead and click on the username. So copy the secret value for the username. Go back to your remote desktop app, paste in the username, go back to Secrets Manager, click on the password. So we want to copy the password of that user, go back to a remote desktop app, paste in the password, and go ahead and connect. So here within a few seconds, we'll be connected to our Windows instance using that username that we entered. All right, so I want to make sure, I'm just going to wait here for a few seconds. I want to make sure that everyone is up to date. So everyone should have a Windows instance created, connected to. And now basically we're going to go ahead and map a network drive to that SIF share. Okay, so let's go ahead and launch File Explorer. We're going to right click or context click this PC and click map network drive. We're going to map this as the Z drive. Okay, so let's go ahead and we want to find the SMB DNS name of the SVM. So where do we find that? The FSX console. So let's go back to the FSX console. From the FSX console, we want to select the storage virtual machines. Okay. Let's go ahead and scroll down. We'll select the virtual machine. And now what we want to do is we want to find the SMB DNS name of the virtual machine. So if we scroll down to our endpoints, you'll notice we have a number of endpoints created for our SVM. The one that we want to use is the one for SMB DNS name. So let's go ahead and copy the DNS name, the SMB DNS name of our SVM. We're going to use that as a part of the UNC path to map our drive. So let's go back to our Windows instance. It's going to be a UNC path. So we're going to go // We're going to paste that in. Sometimes paste doesn't work. So let's try that again. If not, we'll just type it out. We'll type it out. So we have svm01.example.com. We're going to /. What do we want to do is we want to connect to that multi-protocol basically share that we created. So let's type in multi-protocol. So this is what the UNC path should look like to map to that multi-protocol SIF share, the SMB share that we created. Okay. So it should be // svm01.example.com/multi-protocol. Once you have that in there, click on finish and we're connected. So you notice that we have this multi-protocol demo text file. We saw this earlier, didn't we? On the Linux instance. And remember what it actually said? If we go ahead and double click on that, this file is used for multi-protocol access demo. So it's the exact same text, the same file. This file is now being accessed from a Linux instance as well as a Windows instance. Okay. Great. So at this point, if we had a little bit more time, we would actually hop over to the SnapMirror section, basically our bonus section, to actually create a new file system. But based on our schedule, I don't think we're going to have enough time to actually do our SnapMirror. What you can do, though, you can actually run this workshop yourself using your own account from our on-demand workshop. So after this, if you really wanted to run through the SnapMirror demo or workshop, you can definitely go ahead and create this workshop yourself in your own account and walk through these same steps and start going through the SnapMirror demo. So for the sake of time, we're not going to go ahead and do that right now. And we're just going to go ahead and continue with the elastic tiering section in the workshop. So let's go back to our step-by-step guide and we'll skip ahead. So we've already done all of this stuff. We'll go to the elastic tiering section. All right. So with elastic tiering, there are a number of different tiering policies available to FSx for NetApp ONTAP file systems. We have snapshot only, which really moves the data blocks of the volume snapshot copies that are not associated with the active file system to the capacity tier. So the minimum cooling period is 2 days, but they can be modified from anywhere between 2 days and 183 days. So that's one of the tiering policies. The other tiering policy is called auto, which moves cold data blocks in both snapshots and active file systems to the capacity tier. Again, the default cooling period is 31 days, but again, this can be changed anywhere from 2 days to 183 days. Another tiering policy is what we call all, where you move all the user data blocks in the active file system and the snapshots over to the capacity tier. But remember, when you're moving these blocks you cannot move those blocks back to the performance tier. And then the last tiering policy is what we call none. So basically no data movement, the data is stored in the capacity tier. Okay, so let's go ahead and continue with the workshop. So let's enable tiering. So let's go ahead and grab our command here to SSH back into the management endpoint. We'll go to the Linux instance, and we're already in the management endpoint, so we really don't have to execute that. So don't execute that. If you're already connected to the management endpoint, then don't execute that again because you're already there. What we want to do now is we want to go ahead and show the volumes and the tiering policies. Okay, so go ahead and copy the next command, go back to the management endpoint of our file system and execute that command. You notice for our SVM or volume 1, our tiering policy is set to none. We know that because we created that when we set up our SVM and volume. Well, let's go ahead and modify that tiering policy, and we're going to change it from none to a tiering policy of all. So let's go ahead and grab the next command. We're going to go ahead and copy that back to our management endpoint connection, paste that in and run it. So we see a successful command was executed, basically modifying the tiering policy, which is great. So now let's go ahead and go back to the connection of the Linux instance. So let's make sure that is on. Let's go back. Let's go ahead and just copy this. Go back to our connection. But again, we want to quit this. So we want to get out of the endpoint because we want to execute this command that I just copied from the Linux instance, not the endpoint. So let's go ahead and go back to our management endpoint. We're going to quit. You just type in quit. We close that connection. Now we want to go ahead and paste that in. Now basically we're creating some files. So we're using small file to generate some test data against that volume. So we'll wait just a few more minutes, actually just a few more seconds, and the test data will be created. All right, so now that we have some test data created, what we want to do is we want to go back to the management console and we want to take a look at what's happening with this data in terms of the tiering policy. So let's go ahead and go back to our step-by-step guide. Let's go back to the management console. So we'll click on the command to connect to the management console. Again, that password, we need to go back to Secrets Manager. Let's go back to Secrets Manager. This is not the secret that we want to copy. Remember, this was the last one that we used, was the one to access the Active Directory connection that we created when we logged into that Windows instance. So let's go back to secrets. We want to grab the FSX password secret. Scroll down, select retrieve secret value, and grab the password of the FSX admin user. Okay, go ahead and copy that. Go back to our SSH connection, paste in the password, and let's go ahead and do that again because that probably took too much time. We'll paste that in, and now we're logged in. Again, we're logged back into the management console of our file system. So let's verify this tiering policy. So let's go ahead and show the tiering policy for our volume 1. And now we see that the tiering policy is set to all, which is great. Let's go ahead and show the footprint of the volume. So we'll go ahead and copy this command to show the footprint of the volume. We'll go ahead and paste that in there. You notice that we see that the tiering policy is working. We're going from basically the performance tier, the capacity tier, that we already have about 79% of the data being used in the capacity tier. So we have, 95 megabytes has already been moved over to that capacity tier. And we can go ahead and execute that again. We see that, it has already moved all that data over. We're not going to have that. We're not going to see any more changes. So it's great to see that the footprint capacity has changed from the performance tier to the capacity tier. All right, so let's move on. Let's move on to the storage efficiency section of our workshop. So there's 3 storage efficiency features of FSX for NetApp ONTAP file systems. We have compression, data deduplication, and compaction. So with compression basically compresses the data blocks to eliminate the amount of physical storage required for that data. So we basically compress all of those data blocks as much as we can. Next, we do what we call data deduplication. So we eliminate duplicate data blocks to achieve basically the most efficient storage capacity that we have, as well as cost optimization. So you can enable inline and post-process deduplication for your volume. So this is a volume setting. Then the last feature is compaction. So again, it aggregates the multiple small IO operations into a single 4K block. So if there's a lot of these smaller operations going on, what it'll do is compact those into a single 4K block, so it's a little more efficient when it's doing its IO. So in short, compaction will aggregate multiple smaller IO operations into a single 4K block. So again, these compression, deduplication, and compaction, these are the 3 efficiency settings that we have for storage efficiency for our file systems. And basically they're executed in this order. So when we're writing data to the volume, first it will compress the incoming data blocks using inline data compression. Next, it will then remove any duplicate data blocks using inline data deduplication. And then third, it will compact some of those smaller IOs, those IOs that are less than 4K. And it will basically compact those, and it'll combine those into a single 4K block to write to the file system. So again, very efficient when it comes to accessing and writing data into the file system. So let's go ahead and run through some of basically the steps to examine some of the storage efficiency settings. So again, we want to access the endpoint. So I forgot if we're on the endpoint already. We're already in the endpoint, so we don't have to worry about it. Next, we want to go ahead and show the efficiency of the volume. So we want to go ahead and copy the volume efficiency show command, and we're going to execute that against our endpoint. And you notice that for our volume, it is enabled storage efficiency, and the policy is set to auto. Okay. So now let's go ahead and run another command to check if the storage efficiency features are enabled or disabled on the volume itself. Okay. And let's go ahead and go back to our commands. We'll grab the volume efficiency show for the SVM and the volume. Execute that. And now we have all of the different settings for our volume 1. So a couple of the settings that we want to examine here are the efficiency policy name. You notice this efficiency policy name is set here for auto. The inline compression, which is down here, our inline compression is true, so it's enabled. Our inline dedupe or deduplication is also set to true, and our data compaction is also set to true. So now we know that all of our storage efficiency settings for volume 1 have been enabled. So now let's look at how effective, what are the savings that we're receiving from using storage efficiency? So if we scroll down a little, we can see that there is a command to show the basically all of these different fields for our volume. So let's go ahead and copy that command, go back to our management endpoint, execute that command, and you notice that we now have the information on our deduplication savings. So our saving space is around 62%. We don't have any compression or space saved or space percent yet, but we do have data deduplication space saved by 62%. So we're saving 62% of that data, of that space, because we have data deduplication enabled. So now let's take a look at the efficiency stats for our volume. So again, let's go back to our step-by-step guide. We'll click on the volume efficiency stat command. We'll copy that command. We'll execute that in the management console. So now we see that we have had approximately 11,525 inline compression attempts on our volume. So great news. We know that all of the settings that we enabled for storage efficiencies are taking effect, and they are basically affecting the amount of storage used for the data that we have within our file system. All right, so I want to make sure that everyone is up to speed, that we're all here at the end of our storage efficiency section. Great. So let's go ahead and continue, and we'll go into our FlexClone section. So click on FlexClone, and we'll scroll down. So what is FlexClone? So FlexClone really allows you to create a clone of your source volume and allows you to make changes independently of the source volume and this clone volume. So this is really great in sort of non-production environments where you have sort of dev test, where you can go ahead and create a copy of your production environment, and you can start using it and testing it in sort of a dev test or a staging environment. So this is where we see a lot of use out of FlexClone. So let's go ahead and continue the steps and basically set up FlexClone. So from our step-by-step guide, we want to go ahead and grab this command. We're going to execute this against the Linux instance, and we're going to generate some data. And we're going to generate this against the source volume. So let's go back to our SSM connection. You notice that we don't want to execute it here because we're in the management, we're connected to the management endpoint. So we want to go ahead and we want to quit. We should see something like this where we're actually just connected to the Linux instance. Let's go ahead and paste that command. And we're going to use new parallel and DD, and we're going to create some data, okay? So we created, I think we had about 10 iterations. We created some data against us in this file system. All right, so now that this data is created, we want to go back to the management console, or sorry, the management endpoint, and we want to take a look at, we want to go ahead and get, start setting up the FlexClone. So we want to show information around the snapshot, and then we're going to go ahead and create a clone, and then we can basically see the differences between the two. Okay, so let's go back to our step-by-step guide. We'll grab the SSH connection to our endpoint. Let's go ahead and make that connection. Again, we need to go back to Secrets Manager, grab the password of our FSX admin user to connect to our endpoint. Paste that in, and now we're connected to our FSX endpoint. Great. So now let's go ahead and show the information about our volume. So we'll go ahead and show the snapshot information of volume 1. Go ahead and copy that script back to our endpoint, management endpoint, and we see that there are no matching queries. So basically this is telling us that, hey, we don't have any snapshots for volume 1. We knew that. But what we want to do is let's go ahead and create a clone of our volume 1. So let's go ahead and copy that command, go back to the Systems Manager endpoint, our FSX endpoint, and go ahead and create that. That's queued. It'll just take a minute or two and a couple of seconds, sorry, not a minute or two, a couple of seconds, and the volume has been created. Or sorry, not the volume, the FlexClone has been created. So let's go ahead and show the FlexClone information, or the clone information. So let's go back to, we'll go ahead and copy that command to show clone information, and we'll go back to the management endpoint, and we'll show it. So we see that now we have that FlexClone created. Now what we want to do is we want to go ahead and run that command again that shows us the snapshots of our volume to see if anything changes. Now we see that, yes, there is a snapshot of our volume, and it was created as a part of creating that clone. Let's go back and go back to our console, or our step-by-step guide. And we want to see about running a command to create a junction path to our clone volume. So we're going to create this junction path for our clone. So we'll go ahead and copy that command back to our management endpoint and execute that command. Now that junction path has been created. Let's go ahead and show, take a look at the space used between our source and our clone volumes. So let's go ahead and grab these two commands. we'll execute that against the management endpoint. All right, so now what we can see is we can see the different volumes. Basically, we have the volume 1, and volume clone 1. You notice the size is the same, and the available space is the same, and the used space is the same. But let's look at the physical use space. So the physical use space is, for the volume, is 118.7 megabytes, but the physical space used of the clone is much smaller. So any new data, though, that is written to either the parent or the FlexClone volume is not shared between the volumes. So what this will do is as we add new data that's written to the FlexClone volume, we'll see that this FlexClone, the physical space of our FlexClone, will increase. All right, so let's go ahead and quit the management endpoint connection. Go back to our step-by-step guide, and let's go ahead and run this connection against, basically we're going to create a new directory, and we're going to go ahead and mount that new clone volume. So we'll copy this command back to the SSH connection to our Linux instance and execute that command. Now we can see that we now have the volume 1, clone 1. So our FlexClone, or our clone volume, is now mounted as /clone on this EC2 instance. And again, we're mounting it as NFS v4.1. We want to go ahead and change the owner of this directory, or this endpoint, this mount point. So let's go ahead, and because we're using the SSM connection, we're using the SSM user for our connection. So we'll go ahead and just copy this sh-own command, and we'll execute that against the file system. All right. So now this endpoint, or this mount point of /clone is now owned by the SSM user, so we should be able to execute commands against it without any permission issues. Let's go ahead and take a look at the contents of our clone mount point. So we'll go ahead and copy the ls and the df commands, and we're going to execute those in the SSH connection to our Linux instance. So you notice that we have all the list information. So we have the files that we've created, the directories that we have created, and with our df/h command, we see that we have both the volume 1 and the volume 1 clone 1 volumes mounted. The size, the used, and the available are all the same between our two volumes mounted, one as the source and one as the clone. So what we want to do is we're going to go ahead and create a new file on the clone volume, so /clone. So let's go ahead and go back to our step-by-step guide. We're going to grab this next command to create a file on the clone volume. We're going to copy that command back to our Linux instance, and we're going to execute that command. Great. So now that file has been created. We want to also create some data on the FlexClone. So let's go back to our step-by-step guide. We're going to grab this next command that will basically use new parallel and dd to generate some data. We're going to copy that back to our SSH connection to the Linux instance, and we're going to go ahead and execute this. So now we created approximately 128 megs of data, and this was created on the /clone volume that we have mounted. Let's see how that changes. So now let's go back to our step-by-step guide, and we're going to grab the ls and df commands again, execute it again, and see what's different. So you notice that we now have that we now have a different files in the clone volume. We have that text file that we created, and we see that here with the clone.txt file. All right, so now let's go ahead and look at some of the volume information from the management endpoint. So if we go back to our step-by-step guide, we want to connect to the management endpoint. So click on the management endpoint, back to our SSM connection. We'll paste that in there. Again, we have to go back to Secrets Manager, grab the password for our FSX admin user, paste that in, and connect to the management endpoint. Once we're connected to the management endpoint, we want to go ahead and run these commands to basically show the information about the volumes. So let's go ahead and grab those commands, copy them, and we'll execute this against our management endpoint. So you notice here that we do have a difference between what we show here and what we showed earlier when we just created the clone. The size of both were the same as it is still today, or right now. The available space is the same, and the used space is a little different. You notice that we actually have more space being used in the clone volume. And the physical space used is much different. Before, remember, we were just having, maybe if I can scroll up, we had just a few K. We had 820 kilobytes. Now we're showing that we have 3.67 megabytes in the physical use space. So all of the transactions that we did when we created the new files in or on the clone volume are now using physical space against the file system for that clone volume. All right. So let's move on, and let's move to the data protection section of our workshop. And this is going to be the last section we have until we spend just a few minutes at the end to try to clean up some of these resources. So in the data protection section, there are a number of ways that we could protect data within an FSX for NetApp ONTAP file system. We can take snapshots, and snapshots are read-only point-in-time copies of that volume. These are really ideal for really short-term use or recovery. They are not intended and should not be used for sort of off-site or long-term recovery of an entire file system or volume because they're stored within the file system itself. The next is an Amazon FSX backup. So these are cost-efficient offsite backups that are stored in S3. So basically, the volumes of your file systems are going to be stored as S3 objects within S3. Now, they're not going to show up in a bucket that you maintain. They're actually going to show up as backups for your file system that you can use to create new file systems from that backup. We also have snap vaults and SnapMirrors. So snap vaults are basically disk-based technology backups to perform basically off-site backups of your volume. And typically, we would send that to a secondary file system to another region. You would use that as a sort of a mechanism for disaster recovery. And SnapMirror. So SnapMirrors are basically native block-level replication technology for disaster recovery of data migration. So this is how you would basically migrate volumes from basically one environment to another environment. Now, we don't have time to walk through this. This is sort of that bonus section. You can walk through the SnapMirror section yourself if you want to run this workshop using your own account after the workshop webinar today. All right, so let's continue. So if you have some time, go ahead and read through all this information around the FSX backups and Snap Vaults. That's what we're going to be doing right now. But for the sake of time, we're going to go ahead and just continue with the workshop. So what we want to do now is we want to go ahead and connect to the management endpoint. I believe we are still connected to the management endpoint, so we don't have to execute the first command. We want to show our snapshot volume information of our file system. We see that we've got our root volume, we've got our volume 1 that we created, and we have our FlexClone or clone 1 volume that we created. So we've got basically 3 of these volumes created. Next, we want to show the basically the snapshot policy. Okay, so go ahead and grab the next command, and we're going to do this against the management endpoint. So you'll notice that the sort of the schedule that we have, there's going to be 10 snapshots created. There's going to be 6 hourly, there's going to be 2 daily, and there's going to be 2 weekly. But when are these going to run? So we can actually take a look at the cron schedule by running the next command, job schedule cron show. And we can see the schedule of our job, basically. So what we can see here is if we could scroll, we could see our dailies are going to run at 10 minutes after midnight. Our hourlies are at 5 minutes after the hour. And I believe our weeklies down here at the bottom, and they run on Sundays at 15 minutes after midnight. So you can take a look at all the different schedules of when these, basically when these snapshots are scheduled to run. All right, so let's go ahead and make a manual snapshot of our volume, okay? So let's go ahead and grab the next command back to our management endpoint and kick that off. So now we've created basically a manual on-demand snapshot of volume 1. Let's go ahead and take a look at what that volume looks like, the snapshot looks like for our volume 1. Now we should see, now we have basically this new volume. So the new volume, which is the one that we just created, our new snapshot of the volume that we just created. Let's look at basically the space assigned to that volume now. So if we go scroll down and we grab the next command, execute that against the management endpoint, we'll see that we have 5% of the snapshot space is being used. Okay. Now let's go back and let's get out of our management endpoint. And we're going to run the basically df/-h against that volume. So let's go back and we'll grab our next command, our df-h volume 1. We'll execute that against the Linux instance, not the management console or the management endpoint. Remember, the management endpoint, we wanted to quit out of that. We want to execute this against the Linux instance. And we should, actually, maybe we should have, sorry, let me go back and run that against the management endpoint. Let me reconnect. So reconnect. Let's go ahead and run that again. There we go. my mistake. You wanted to run that within a management endpoint. Sorry. So from the management endpoint, you want to run the df-h volume 1 because that's where we have volume 1. Otherwise, it would be a slash volume would have to have that junction path. But now we basically can see that we have the volume 1, and we have basically this hidden snapshot, basically this snap reserve. Now the snap reserve, we're using 5%. 5% of the snapshot space is being used. So as snapshots are created, we will continue to start consuming space within the data area of our volume. So now let's go ahead and quit out of our management endpoint. We'll go ahead and look at one of the files that we created. Remember, we created that multi-protocol -demo text file. Let's go ahead and append some data to that. So let's go ahead and take a copy of that script. We'll go ahead and run this against the Linux instance. Now that we see that we have the original line in there, but we also have the appending text before single file restore line in there. Okay, so now let's go ahead and we're going to mount a volume as restore. Okay, so let's go ahead and mount that, or make a new directory, sorry, call it restore. And now we're going to basically change the directory to that hidden snapshot directory. And we're going to copy the file from basically to that restore directory. Okay, so let's go ahead and grab the next command. And here we're going to basically cd over to that new hidden snapshot directory. And then we're going to basically cat that directory or cat that file, and then we're going to go ahead and copy that file over to the restore directory. Copy that command, go back to our Linux instance, and execute that command. Now let's just go ahead and cat that file in the restore directory. And we'll see that because there was the file is now, it's the original version of the file because we restored it from that snapshot. We don't have the line that we appended to the file up here. So we've got the original version of the file in the restore directory, and we have the current version, which is the file in the regular directory called the multi-protocol -demo text. And that one should have two files in it. Okay, so let's go back to our Windows instance and let's take a look at this. So we notice that we see this file here. That's the contents. So let's go ahead and open up that again and see what we have. So we know that now we have that new line added to the file. So all those changes that we just did on the Linux instance are, again, they're accessing the same file. We can now see that information here in the current file from the Windows instance. But you notice now we have this new restore directory. So if we go to this restore directory and we click on this, we can see that it has the original version without that second line. Okay. So let's go ahead and see if we can restore this file to a previous version, because we have taken a snapshot of this volume. So if we click on this this file, right click or context click, go down to restore previous versions, you notice that we have a previous version of that file. If we double click onto that, we'll see that, hey, there's that previous version of the file. So let's see can we restore it? Be sure you want to restore, and we try to restore it. And what happens? We don't have permissions to restore this file. So why don't we have permissions? Well, if you remember, we had basically the Linux or the Unix security style created. So this user that we were using on the Linux machine, the SSM user, isn't the same user that we're accessing from this Windows machine. So now we don't have the ability to basically restore that file. And what we could do is we could verify that by going back to our step-by-step guide. Let's go ahead and connect back to our management endpoint. Grab our password for our management endpoint. Let's go ahead and show the volume, the security style of our volume. You notice that it's Unix. So that's why we were unable to restore that file. All right, so let's do one other quick operation, and then we'll start cleaning up our resources. So let's go ahead and make a backup of our file system. So if we go to the FSX, from the step-by-step guide, we can open up the FSX console. We want to select the file system ID that we have. We want to go ahead and select the volumes. We want volume 1. We're going to make a backup of volume 1. I'm going to create a backup, and we're going to call that name, that backup name, right here. So basically going to call it FSX ONTAP Workshop Backup. So if we take a look at the Backups tab, we're going to notice that for that volume, we're going to have a, we'll go back to Backups. For that volume, we're going to basically have, we're going to be creating a backup of this volume 1. So it's going to take a few minutes for that volume to be created. And we're going to run out of time, because really what we want to do is we want to create that backup, then we want to take and make a restore of that backup. So we don't have time to complete that, but what we want to do is we want to basically wrap up. We only have 5 minutes left. We want to go ahead and wrap up our workshop today. So let's go ahead and from the step-by-step guide, let's click on Clean Up Resources. So we want everyone to start this here within the next few minutes. This is going to take a few minutes, but you can go ahead and continue to clean up your resources after the webinar has been ended, and then we'll go ahead and terminate the workshop a few minutes after that. All right, so let's go ahead and delete some of our resources. So let's go ahead and go back to our Linux instance, and we're going to unmount all of these volumes. Okay, so let's go back to our Linux instance. We're going to quit out of our management endpoint, and we're going to unmount our volumes. Great. Let's go ahead and just verify that those volumes have been unmounted. Yep, they have it. Excellent. Let's go ahead and connect to the endpoint, management endpoint. Get our password from Secrets Manager. Now that we're logged in, what we want to do is we want to take our volumes offline. So we'll grab our clone volume. We're going to take that offline. I'm going to say yes to that. And that volume is now offline. We're going to do the same with and now we're going to delete that volume. And are you sure you want to do that? And we do. And here in a few seconds, that volume will be deleted. Great. Let's go ahead and show our volumes to make sure that we've cleaned that up. All right, so our clone volume is done, has been deleted. So now what we're going to do, we're going to go back to our FSX console. We're going to start deleting our volumes, and then we're going to delete our SVM. So from the FSX console, click on the volumes. What we want to do now is do a refresh, make sure everything is there. Let's go ahead and delete our volume 1. We'll delete all of these volumes. And we'll delete this volume. We don't have to delete the root volume. We'll just leave it at those two. So it's going to take a few minutes for these root volumes, or these volumes to be deleted. Once the volumes are deleted, what I want you to do is go over to the storage virtual machine. You can continue to follow the steps in the step-by-step guide after the webinar ends to finish the cleanup. Once those volumes have been deleted, go back to the storage virtual machines. Click on the storage virtual machine and delete the storage virtual machine and try to do that. So right now it's deleting, which is great. So now my SVM is in a deleting state. After a few minutes, my SVM will be deleted, and then I can delete my file system. So again, we can go back to the file system, click on this. I'd like to copy the file system ID, go to Actions, Delete File System, paste in the file system ID, and click on Delete File System. It's not going to let me because the storage virtual machine is in the process of being deleted. But once my storage virtual machine is deleted, I'll be able to delete my file system. Then that's it. Then you've completed the cleanup and you're done with the workshop. So with that, I want to thank everyone for participating today. Hopefully you were able to follow along using the account that we provided. Again, if you want to do this yourself using your own account after this workshop, feel free to do so. Go to, just do a search for our Amazon FSX workshops, and you'll see some on-demand workshops, and you can walk through the same workshop using your own account.